Hi and welcome back to HappinessSparkles. Today I am getting on to do a long time promised video to Gabbi, my girl Gabbi from Fragratition. Yeah, it kind of spoke to me this because for anyone who collects or loves fragrances, I've always adored fragrances, and when I was a little kid I would steal my mom's fragrance, I would steal my sister's fragrance, and as I got older and I'm not maybe as young as Nora, I know, my bad. I'm teaching Nora way too early to be passionate about fragrances, but you know what? At 2.5 she is going to remember the smell when she is grown up, when she is an adult or a teenager, an adult. When she gets older, she's going to remember those fragrances and that smell, because that is like permanently etched into your brain, those smells. Because I can remember smells, maybe not when I was 2, but definitely when I was 4 or 5 years old. I can remember smells. Certain kinds of smells would absolutely bring back memories that I had a long time forgotten. Before I get started, I just wanted to show you my new filming studio. My daughter moved out maybe a month or so ago, and around Christmas time, and it kind of, we're back to empty nesters again. Our kids are, all out in the world by themselves, and that's the way it should be. And now I have all this space in this house and all these bedrooms, and I thought, why not move into the room that she had, which is in a gorgeous room which was recently decorated. And yeah, I thought, why not? And it's downstairs in the basement, so why not come in here and set it up as a little studio? So that's what I did, and it also gives me some privacy because it's away from my husband. I love him dearly, I do. I love him dearly, but when I'm filming, he's a bit of a distraction because you hear noises in the background and that distracts. Yeah, so I thought, why not film down here now that I have this room, and it is beautiful, and it's well staged. So yeah, I didn't allow her to take this fur rug with her when she left, because I had bought it especially for all of this ensemble in this grey room, and I love it. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to get into this video, and I'm going to link my friend Gabbi down below. She did this video and she did it amazing. And so I've got my notes here, and I've got my glasses, so I'm going to put my glasses on. And I've been thinking about this for quite a while, making notes on it, and I guess she did this tag before Christmas, and I was a little bit nervous about doing this tag because I overthought it too much, and the more I overthought it, the less I wanted to do it. So I decided today that I'm just going to take my notes, I'm going to sit down, and I'm just going to wing it. Like, honestly, just a few notes that I kind of wrote down: childhood, teens, my mid-20s, and so on, and what these fragrances, they remind me of those times, not necessarily because I used them, but because they bring up haunting memories of that time. If you're interested in hearing about my haunted fragrances, then keep watching. So we're going to start off with a fragrance that it reminded me of my childhood. It reminded me of amazing happy times when I was a little tiny girl, just maybe 4, 5, 6 years old. And it is none other than Insolence by Guerlain. And this is the original formula. They now come in a bee bottle. I think they're called a bee bottle. And I picked this up on, I think it was eBay. And yes, it is authentic. It was a tester, didn't come with a lid, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get this, because I had heard Smurfy Girlie, Claire, talk about it on her channel, And she said, it smells straight up like Parma violets. Parma violets are something that us in Britain, when I lived in Ireland and England, they're like a sweet, like a candy. So she said that's what it smelled, straight up like Parma violets. And my sister was addicted to Parma violets. I liked them. I mean, I loved them. And they tasted like a violet. They tasted like a sweet, sugary violet flower. And they were really unique and delicious. And they were hard candy, you know. So anyway, as soon as she said that, I said, I remember the Parma violets. So a lot of people on YouTube they don't know what a Parma violet smells like. But this is straight up violets. This is a powdery violet fragrance, and I'm not going into a lot of the notes because I don't have them in front of me, and I only know some of the notes that are in this. So this is straight up, smells like violets, like creamy, powdery violets. And I'm just gonna spray a little bit in the air. And it also has a reminiscence of, I think it was made by Yardley's, and it was called Violet Flowers. I will link a picture above. And this is a more sophisticated smell of that fragrance, which you can still, Yardley's are phenomenal. I mean, I think Yardley's is produced by Coty, if I'm not wrong. I could be wrong. Please don't yell at me if I'm wrong. But yeah, Yardley's fragrances are still on the go, and it was called Violet Flowers or something like that, but I will link it. We'll link it above. I'll find a picture of it and link it above. And as soon as she said that, I blind bought it, and I blind bought it in the summertime, and as soon as it arrived, I did an unboxing, so I will link that video down below of the unboxing and my reaction to it. So what this reminds me of is my childhood, for one. It reminds me of carefree days, days of frolicking in the meadow and playing with my friends and poking sticks into the pond and just being a kid. And that's what this reminds me of. Now, this is a sophisticated fragrance. It's not like a childish fragrance, but that's what this reminds me of. So yeah, that is my first memory as a child of a fragrance, and that's what this reminds me of. So moving on to my teen years. And being a teenager is challenging at the best of times, and being a teenager is not my favorite memories. I have very stressful kind of anxiety memories, and this fragrance, I love it, don't get me wrong, it doesn't evoke those memories, but it evokes the memories that kind of like being a little bit of a rebel. And you're full of hormones in those, in those years. And I would say probably around the age of 13, I was a late developer. So I was still very much a little girl inside, my body looked like a little girl, but my brain was just all a muddle of hormones and rebellion. And, my mother was a single woman. At that point, she was a widow, and I think she really struggled with me, my emotions. I was a very empathetic child, so I kind of got drawn into a lot of drama with other kids, and I was always the one to, be overly generous and be overly kind to kids that maybe didn't have my best interests at heart. So I kind of think that it was more of a rebellion fragrance that I should think about, something a bit more kind of sexy and dark. That may be contradictory to you, but to me it's also rebellion and doing what you're not supposed to do when you're a teenager, and you're told to go, if you go out you have to be home at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and I was always that one that just pushed the envelope and, I don't smoke or drink. And I was that kid that, I smoked, I drank, I got into a little bit of trouble. Not serious trouble, like not like policeman trouble, but yeah, just a little bit of a rebel. And so the fragrance that I pick, which I think is fitting for me at that stage, is Alien Essence Absolute. And it's dark. The bottle is stunning, but it's alien, right? It's like badass. And that's what I kind of wanted to be when I was a teenager, but it was such mixed emotions that I really wasn't cut out for that. So that was a short period of time until I was maybe about 15, so 15, 16. And then I actually met my husband when I was 16, so that settled me down big time. But yeah, this is a dark, sexy fragrance, but also rebellious. And it has that myrrh in it, and it's very gourmand. And I didn't know anything about gourmand fragrances when I was a teenager, so I wouldn't have worn anything like this. This is a very mature fragrance. Not mature, but like anybody can wear it, but mature. You wouldn't wear this if you were like 13 or 14 years old, right? So I just looked at the bottle and I looked at the color of the juice, and I just thought, you're just a badass. You are a badass. You were me as a teenager, that's all I can say. So moving on to the next one. That's me as a teenager. So moving on into my 20s, and by the time I got into my 20s, I was married, let's say around 2021. I was married to my gorgeous husband. We had been married a year. Yeah, we got married. I met him at 16 and we didn't get married until I was 19. And he's older than I am. So, that was kind of, at 16, me meeting someone that was much older was a little bit, again, that rebel in me, right? My mother was furious, but she fell in love with him just as much as I did. And the rest is history. So by the time we were in our 20s, we were struggling financially. We didn't have kids at that time. I didn't have my first son until I was 24. And by that time we were in Canada. So moving to Canada, with nothing in our pockets, no money, no prospect of jobs, and I was pregnant with my first child. So, but we were married for 4 years at this point. So we were pretty emotionally stable, but financially we didn't basically have anything. So, but looking in my fragrance closet thinking, what would I pick for my 20s? And this is what I would pick. Now, I don't talk an awful lot about this fragrance. I have mentioned it a few times, and it's Celine Dion Sensational. And this is a fruity pear. Oh, my sprayer's gone. Oh, there it is. This is very much a fruity pear with like a soapy vibe to it, like a fresh out of the shower soapy vibe. And this is, I think, my third bottle, and I actually have another backup of it. This is a cheap fragrance. Unfortunately, it is discontinued, but is still available on the market in some places. It's a ridiculous price though. But if you like a fresh, soapy pear, sweet pear fragrance, and the sweetness is just getting to my my juices in here, then you might like this fragrance. So yeah, so it reminds me of in my 20s and the excitement of moving to Canada Just the very thought of making a new and exciting life. Now, we'd been to Canada for a vacation. All my in-laws had already moved. There was a full-on, that was in the 70s, there was a full-on civil war in Belfast at that time. So in 1976, we finally made it to Canada. We had been trying since we got married, so that was 73, 74, 75, 76. We finally made it 4 years later. And just, moving into an apartment, being pregnant, my husband got a job right away, and it just reminds me of it's kind of got an innocent vibe to it. The excitement of your future, the prospects of being successful in a new country and making a new life for ourselves and a new baby on the way. Hopefully buying a house, because I was really, I didn't want to live in the apartment. So I said, as soon as we have enough money saved up, we're going to put a down payment on a house and we're going to get out and we're going to be in our own house, and just all of that. And this kind of reminds me of my 20s. So that is Celine Dion, Sensational. So moving on to my 30s. And my 30s, I've talked about the fragrance that I wore in my 30s. So this is the fragrance that I actually wore in my 30s. So this is truly what I feel about this fragrance. And it is Eternity by Calvin Klein. And I will say that this is one of the most complimented fragrances that I've ever been complimented on. Look, I have gone through a lot of this. I use it mostly, I don't use it in the winter. Oh, I have to smell it. Eternity is it's probably not a good blind buy. You either love this or you don't. It's carnations. It's carnations with the cloves, if you like that, and then it's powdery. So there are all sorts of other notes in there, but I don't have the notes, so I'm not going to go into the notes because I don't know them on the top of my head. All I know is what this smells like, and it's carnations with spicy cloves, and then it dries down. Powdery, sweet, floral smell goes right to the end, and the cloves and the carnations stay right to the end. So this reminds me of in my 30s. By that point in my 30s, I had 2 kids, 2 boys. Heather came along much later. So I had the 2 boys. We had bought our second home. We moved into a townhouse, and then we sold that 7 years later, made some money, and then we bought a detached bungalow, and that was down near the Lake Ontario in Toronto, in the outskirts suburbs of Toronto. We lived there for 25 years, and my husband was well established in General Motors at that point. He was doing really well. We were, doing really well. I had gone back to school and got my hairdressing license to practice in Canada, because you need a license for that here. Yeah, I guess my youngest was, how old was he then? He'd have been about 7 or 8, I want to say, by the time I hit my 30s. So I had him when I was 25. So yeah, he would have been about 5 or 6. So I remember going into the Bay, or it might have been Sears, and I remember smelling this at the counter, and I had sprayed it on myself. And then, back in those days, they had girls standing with perfume and they would spray it right on you, which would be unheard of now. People would never do that. People would be up in arms if you ever sprayed perfume on them. So, but in those days, the girl said, this is our new fragrance, blah, 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 blah. Would you like to try it? And of course I said yes. and I was hooked right away. This was it. And it was expensive in those days. Now, it was probably around $40 or $50, but that was a lot of money in the 90s. And it's cheaper now. It's around $20. You can actually pick this up for under $20. And I wore it probably, it feels like a decade, but I think I only wore it for possibly 5 or 6 years. And that's what this reminds me of, having that, you know, having it all, as they say, you know, having the house and having the career, you know, working part-time. Then I had my own business, small hairstyling business, and worked part-time, stayed home part-time. So, you know, like perfect life, and I loved it. Great husband, you know, great home life, and going on holidays and all the rest of it. So this is the fragrance that reminds me of my 30s. So moving on to my 40s, and I just acquired this fragrance, and it's Prada d'Iris, Infusion d'Iris by Prada. And I just purchased this a couple of weeks ago. And I knew what it smelled like. This is not a blind buy. I'm not doing any more blind buys, just so you know, I'm just not. So this, I didn't smell it on my skin, but I smelled it on someone else's skin a few years ago. A friend of mine in New York City. This is her signature fragrance. And because I don't see her, I felt like I could go ahead and purchase this fragrance, because I don't like to purchase someone else's signature fragrance unless I don't see them that often and I can wear it. So this reminds me of my 40s, and it's a beautiful powdery iris fragrance. It's very, I'm going to do a review on this, so I won't talk about it in this video because it will make it too long. But it's a very interesting, unique fragrance that, in my opinion, is niche quality, because it kind of starts off green and then it changes. So this reminds me of my 40s. So if I had had this fragrance in my 40s, this is what I imagine I would have smelled like. So moving on to my 50s. My 50s was a time when we started to travel, you know, just get out in the world, and the kids were older. You know, 50 is a time when you kind of get your independence back again. You're not just at the beck and call of your kids as much, because I had my kids early. And the one that really spoke to me when I got this, it just reminded me, when I smell this, it reminds me of my 50s. And it's Terracotta by Guerlain, and this is my first bottle that I just got a couple of months ago, and I'm halfway through it already. As you can see, I have a backup. So this is a very beachy, sorry, that just came right back at me. This is a very beachy, white floral, coconut, creamy, just reminds me of travel to Europe, travel to the Caribbean, whatever way you want to pronounce it, going down to Cuba for a quick holiday. This reminds me of that time in my life, in my 50s. 50s coming right up until kind of late 50s. And it's just a gorgeous, it smells like frangipani, it's got ylang ylang, coconut, creamy coconut, and I'm addicted to this. And it is a summery fragrance, but I sometimes wear it. I've been wearing it like all year, or since I got it, not all year. I've only had it a couple of months, but I've been wearing it obviously in the winter, the fall, and I love it. It doesn't last a long time, but I enjoy just spritzing it on every 4 hours. So yeah, that reminds me of my 50s. And moving on to my 60s, and I am now in my 60s. I just recently got this fragrance. This was sent to me. I only have a sample. I'm waiting for my full bottle to come, and then we'll talk about that. It's in the mail as we speak, and it is this sample. This was sent to me by Abby, from Abby with Love, and she has a fragrance channel. I met her when I started my fragrance journey last February. She lives in England, in London. She is a young, pretty, beautiful, gorgeous girl with a heart of absolute, just wears her heart on her sleeve. This fragrance is it's from Penhaligons, Elizabethan Rose. And I fell in love with Abby when we met. I just loved watching her videos. I contacted her. She was looking for a fragrance at that time that was discontinued and was no longer available anywhere. And I happened to find it here, and I said, you know what, I found your fragrance. It's the legitimate one. It's through a contact that I know on eBay, but this is the real deal. And I'm going to send it to you. So I purchased it, I mailed it, and I sent it to her, and we've been bonded ever since. She introduced me to Penhaligons Elizabethan Rose. When she talked about it on her channel, she talked about other fragrances in the Penhaligon line, and I got immediately intrigued with this niche brand. And she said, you know what, Frances, I'm going to send you some samples. I have a little gift for you. I'm going to, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to send it to you. And she said, would you like to try some of my Penhaligon fragrances? And I said, I would adore that. So she described me as Elizabethan Rose. She thought I was that lady, she felt, this is what her words, not my words. She said, you're that classy, elegant lady with this rose fragrance on. It's so unique. And when it arrived and I sprayed it on, it immediately sent me into a garden, an English garden full of roses after the rain. That smell, that kind of almost like a green, fresh rose, wet, that smell of the wetness after the rain, that smell in the air, and this is what this fragrance reminds me of. It also reminds her of Princess Diana, and I could see Princess Diana wear this. I could absolutely see her. This is definitely signature worthy. It is elegant. It is classy. It has a matureness to it that I feel comfortable in it. It makes me comfortable in my own skin, and I can't wait to get a full bottle of it. And that is all of my fragrances. And if you watched this video all the way to the end, then I want to see some red hearts, because it's going to be Valentine's Day in a few days. So red hearts to tell me that you watched my video all the way to the end, because this is going to be a long video. Anyway, thank you for coming and watching, and I will see you in the next video. And as I always say, don't let anyone ever dull your sparkle.